Hello, 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 Mindsetters, and welcome to Learn Extra Live. You guys are here with Tara and the wonderful Kamalan. How are
Hi
you?
guys, hi Tara.
Hello.
Guys, today an exciting episode, GIS, Geographical Information Systems. It's the one you've been waiting for. What do you think, Tara?
I'm so excited to hear about all of this. Today we're proudly sponsored by Macmillan. So get out your books and let's get going. We've got so much to learn, and by the looks of it, it's going to be cool. I'm on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Learn Extra Live, and you can just post any questions that you have and I'll follow them up as soon as I can. Let's get going.
Thanks, Tara. Guys, we're good to go. GIS. Let's look at the focus of today's session. In today's session, we will focus on the key concepts and exam questioning techniques relating to GIS. In this segment, we will look at past question papers as well as ensure that all the content that you have been working with is enabled you to answer the geography paper 2. So let's get straight into it. But before we begin, let's start with our challenge questions. Today, the question is, what is georeference data? Georeference data, I'm going to give you a clue. Geo meaning Earth. So, you've got to tell us today, what is georeference data? Let's get into the lesson. GIS is an information system. In order for you to understand GIS, you need to know the following: that geographical information is something that we depend on from data. You cannot get information without accessing data, specifically raw data. When we're looking at geographical information systems, it is important for you to understand how we get that map, the topographical map, which forms the basis of your geography paper 2. Let's look at this diagram to gain some further insight. Upon looking at this diagram, you will note the following. We have in this situation an aeroplane, and if you notice, this particular aeroplane has a camera that is photographing the Earth's surface. Note, when you're studying geography for geography paper 2, you should be working with both a topographical map as well as the aerial photograph. A common question in your exam paper is, which came first, the photograph or the map? The correct answer is the photograph. Now, through this particular diagram, you will see that a plane flies over the Earth's surface and photographs a series of the Earth's surface. When photographing the Earth's surface, 25 photographs make up one topographical map. And note that the scale of this particular photograph is 1:10,000. 25 of these make up a 1:50,000 topographical map. Let's focus on GIS. When focusing on GIS, note that this particular plane is collecting data, not information. It's collecting data about the Earth's surface, data in the form of photographs. This is what we refer to as spatial data. By analyzing, we call it spatial data. Stored data is the ability of these photographs to give us information about the Earth's surface. Where would it be stored? In a computer, correct. Manipulated data is the ability of a person using the computer to access specific types of information. So let's look at what GIS is all about, and specifically, what are the components of a GIS. The components of a GIS is important to remember. Firstly, we need people. People who are skilled in operating and using the technology in the form of computers. So people form the first component of GIS. Hardware. Hardware are the components of a computer. Example, the monitor, the keyboard, the mouse, the printer, as well as the scanner. When putting all these hardwares together, they form the second component of a GIS. Software that can be used in a GIS is specifically referring to the programs. And remember, the types of programs or software that are used in a GIS are as follows. ArcView. We also have Esri software, Google Maps, and these software enable GIS to be performed. Let's look at the next component of a GIS, data. Both spatial as well as attribute data or procedures and methods. So let's look at how you should be studying this. In order to remember the components of a GIS, note the following. A GIS is made up of 5 components: software, data, methods in the form of spatial and attribute data, people. These are the people who control the technology, as well as hardware in the form of monitors, keyboards, and scanners. A good question could be, which of these components is the most important for a GIS? And if you're guessing, the correct answer is correct, data. No, some of you've got it wrong. The correct answer is data. Data forms the most important component of a GIS. And remember, data is simply gathering information about the Earth's surface. And this can be gathered through photographing the Earth's surface, as well as defining specific objects on the Earth's surface. Let's go further. Now, when looking at data in a GIS, we should note the following. There are 2 types of data in a GIS, or geographical information system. These can commonly be referred to as spatial and attribute data. Spatial refers to a specific object in the form of a point, line, or polygon. Now, in today's lesson, I'm going to show you the difference between a spatial data and an attribute data. Remember the definition. Spatial refers to location and shape. And the 3 types of spatial data that you get in the form of vectors are points, lines, and polygons. When we're talking about attribute data, we are looking at a specific description, quantity, or quality of a geographical feature. In today's lesson, we will look at a geographical feature on a topographical map. I've selected this particular block to show you the difference between spatial data and attribute data. This, in ordinary circumstances, would be what we refer to as a line object. A line object, before even looking at it, let's look at a specific type of exam question. In the exam question, you could be asked, identify the line object in this particular block. In this particular block, the line object is the road. However, by calling it a road, we are actually putting a description to the line object, and it becomes an attribute data. If we look at further attributes of this line object, we should note the following. It is a national road. N2, that is an attribute to the line object. It is a freeway. It has many lanes. We're describing it as a tarred road. It has on as well as off ramps. The road is level. The road is straight. The following refer to the attributes or descriptions of the line object. So, note the following. How do we distinguish the vector in this particular example? Spatial data refers to a shape in the form of a line, a point, or a polygon, or an area object, which is commonly referred to. How do we describe? When it's described, it becomes an attribute data. So your line object in this example is your road. When we describe or attribute a specific component of it, it becomes attribute data. Now, think of a GIS. When it is photographed, Initially, it is a line object and it's fed into a computer. The person operating the computer has to perform attributes to the line object. And once identified, it can be having the following descriptions. Moving on. Let's look at a specific GIS application. Now, in this particular diagram, you will note that we're focusing on agricultural activities, which is a key component of economic geography, which you should be completing at this stage. Let's look at how a GIS determines agricultural cropping. So, you will note in this particular label, B, we are measuring the insolation or the incoming solar radiation. Incoming solar radiation will determine the amount of crop being grown. Through the use of satellite images, which photograph a particular or image a particular area of agricultural growth, which then sends back that information to the satellite receiver, captured on a computer, and then harvesting takes place. So, remember, as we grow more with technology, we are better able to plan our agricultural practices in this country. For farmers, or in our geographical terminology, for commercial farmers as well as large-scale farmers, they can use technology in the form of GIS to determine when harvesting periods are going to take place. By simply using a GIS, you can now have inputted data in the form of measuring the amount of plant growth through satellite images. And this determines how frequently the crops are harvested. Isn't this enlightening? Previously, we should depend on lesser technology forms, which then resulted in a huge lots of crops, especially during times of flooding as well as droughts. Now, with the use of technology in the form of GIS, we are better enabled to improve our agricultural practices. This is an application of GIS in the form of agriculture. Let's move on. Now we're going to look at the actual data collection. The data collection is dependent on aspects such as remote sensing, interviews, scanning, and digitizing. Let's look at these terms closely. Remote sensing is simply trying to gauge the phenomena when you're not near or close to it. Remote sensing means an object that is at a distance. How do we gauge the shape and form of an object? Through remote sensing. Correct. With the use of a satellite. So now with the use of a satellite, we are able to gauge the shape and form of objects. Interviews, we gather data through people on social networks. Like Tara is speaking to you right now on Facebook and different platforms like Twitter, you would enable information to flow through. She is actually collecting that data and putting it together to see what is the most frequently asked type of questions. Now note the following. You are inputting the data. When all that data comes together, it becomes information for analysis. Raw data is required in order to create information which can be analyzed. Scanning, this is simply the use of a scanner to take images of photographs and load it onto a computer. And digitizing. Digitizing is simply getting the images and putting it into a digital format for use in a computer. If you observe in this particular example, we have a satellite image which is scanning the Earth and taking satellite images of different surfaces on the Earth. This enables us to acquire the data, store it on the computer, and process it as information, which would assist us in various applications. Let's look at a practical component. What we have here is a section from settlement geography called urban growth. Now, if you remember your definition of urban growth, this would assist you. Correct. Urban growth is, yes, the percentage increase of people living in the urban area through GIS in the form of images or, in this case, aerial photographs. We are better able to determine the urban growth. Observe in this particular diagram A and diagram B. Diagram A was taken in the year 2000. Diagram B in 2002. Through aerial photography, we are now able to see that in this particular area on this aerial photograph, there has been urban growth. When an area is growing in terms of population, this has huge impact on settlement in terms of the provision of service delivery in the form of police stations. Did you know that a certain amount of people are required in order for a police station to be located in a particular settlement? Through GIS, this would enable us to plan better using GIS technology in specific settlements around our country. Think further, the provision of water, the provision of services such as social development. Now, all these aspects are GIS, and aren't you so happy because you've selected geography? What do you think, Tara?
I'm hearing this and I'm being blown away. This is
Excellent.
amazing. Yeah, very much so. I mean, all this urban growth, all this water, though, I have to say, it's making me a bit thirsty. I don't know how the mindsetters feel. Guys, we're going to go to a quick break. I hope that's all right. Please join us again afterwards. We'll be right back with more information. Cool. Thanks, guys. Hello, Mindsetters. Welcome back, guys. I hope you had a refreshing water break. And speaking of water, I have some awesome news. There is a cool competition going on at the moment. It's called Essay Water Game. Go online, check on Facebook. There's a link there that'll take you to enter the competition. There are some awesome prizes to be won. Some money, you get put in a draw if you don't get the money, the first 3 prizes. But it's some really cool stuff and definitely worth your time. So go on, log on and have a look, please. Let's get back to geography. Awesome.
Thanks, Tara. Guys, water games, especially played by farmers. Again, GIS and what is the use of water in terms of planning with a GIS. And in this example, you will see an example of data manipulation for agricultural activities. You will see that behind this particular diagram, or satellite image, it has been manipulated according to the plot sizes. This different colors is actually determining the type of harvesting that will be taking place. In different colors on a satellite image will determine the different times for harvesting. These lines are interpolated on a satellite image in order to create different farming boundaries or different crops. You'll note here is the original image. In this particular one, you look at the red and it shows you harvested areas that require harvesting, right? And in this particular area, it is a digitized image of the same area. So you see, guys, a GIS has various different applications which can be used in urban planning as well as agricultural activities. These are required in order for a country like South Africa to gain economic development and better plan for the future. Remember, one of the aspects you'll be dealing with, especially in economic geography, is food security. And GIS enables better food security by enabling geographic data to be processed as information for better planning. Let's move on. So, once we've collected the data, now it has to be stored in the computer. The information or data that we collect, the data that we collect is now being stored in the computer. These are stored in 2 formats, a raster format as well as a vector format. Now note, as we've alluded to earlier, your vector formats are your points, lines, and polygons. Your raster formats are your images, like photographs. So, if you look at this particular diagram, it shows you your hardware and what's within the computer in the form of a database. Now, in loading this information, in loading the data into the computer, we are enabling information to be created, which can be analyzed and manipulated to make decisions. So, again, the key component is data first, then information, and then analysis and manipulation. These are processes that enable a GIS. Notice the following: thematic layers on maps. Once vector as well as raster data, some of you may say raster, but I like raster data. Raster data as well as vector data is inputted into a computer. It is created in the form of layers in the computer system. It is manipulated according to specific needs, and these needs are layered pieces of information. Note, the data went into the computer, and now we're processing information. All the data on social factors, vegetation, infrastructure, land use, drainage, relief features that have inputted into the computer now becomes information in the form of thematic layers. When studying this and manipulating it, depending on the user of this information, let's say, for example, it is an urban development, he will require social factors, infrastructure, land use, as well as drainage and relief features. So he would manipulate the specific information to enable him to make a decision on whether a particular area requires urban development. Now, note thematic layers. Thematic layers are specific data on specific data that enables information to be manipulated. Let's move on. Once all this data is created as information, now we determine the output, and your output is your topographical map. So, let's look at it. Maps, images, pictures. When looking at this particular topographical map, you will note it has raster as well as vector data. Your vector data in the form of lines, points, as well as area objects around. If you look at the background information, this is your image data. So, natural disasters. Let's look at a GIS application. Now, if you're living in the Johannesburg area, you will note that a few years ago, the Jikski River, which goes through the town of Alexandria, has been flooding. And a lot of people have lost their lives, especially those that located their dwellings along the river banks. Through a GIS application, in this particular example, you'll note the aerial photograph has been taken, and an image of the river, including the flood line, has been created. This now enables a restriction on settlements along the river banks, especially during times of floods. So you will note that this particular GIS showed the impact of the river overflowing its banks onto the floodplain where particular settlements were located. Isn't this wonderful? We are now able to determine where to locate specific settlements so that natural disasters like floods do not impact on people living in specific areas. So, aerial photograph, satellite image, as well as data manipulation to show you how and where to locate a settlement. If you look at the next application, again, further use of a GIS. In this particular example, you will note that interpolation has been taken place in order to show you the flood line. And what has happened in the interim is that people have been removed from these flooded areas in order to save them, especially during times of heavy rainfall. And graphical information in the form of how to manipulate that particular area so that no settlements can be reached. These are the outputs of your GIS. Now we've gathered that information and we make decisions on where to locate people. The next segment now we will look at is who else uses GIS. GIS can be used for population. What you should note is that in remote areas of South Africa, especially largely rural provinces, it is impossible for enumerators during the census to determine the population. Did you know that aerial photographs actually determine the estimate of a particular population living in a specific area? Because of their remote locations, they cannot be accessed accurately. So the census uses aerial photographs to determine an estimate of the population. Biodiversity. Measuring the moisture levels determines where in the world specific types of animals as well as flora and fauna are located. Remember, a biodiverse area is areas with many different types of flora as well as fauna. These can be determined through GIS simply by the measurement of soil moisture, which determines vegetative growth, which also determines the amount and different types of animals living in a specific area. Global warming, something that is close to our hearts as geographers, especially measuring the amount of insolation in the atmosphere year after year. All the data that has been gathered over the past few centuries of the Earth increasing in temperature has enabled us to make decisions on how we live today. And hopefully those decisions are being lived by you. Urbanization, we've went through. The pollution levels. In South Africa, our pollution rates are increasing, especially with regard to air as well as land pollution. The amount of pollution that is there in the atmosphere, the air pollution, can now be measured using GIS. Waste disposal is currently a huge problem, especially in our urban centers. How we measure the amount of waste disposal, collect all that data, and make decisions on specific areas for landfill sites. Various other aspects include congestion. Traffic congestion is a major problem in our major CBDs, especially the city of Johannesburg. By simply calculating the amount of traffic passing through a particular point, gathering that data, inputting it into a computer system, and using a GIS software, we can gather information about hotspots of traffic or traffic congestion during particular times. Conservation, land use, oceans. One of the most important aspects is our threat to wildlife, especially in our oceans. Did you know that the populations of sharks around the eastern seaboard of southern Africa is decreasing? Yes, and now what technology has done is we are now enabled to track these sharks that are swimming off our waters and determine their movements and control their populations. And if you log on to a Google website, you will be able to access the movement of these sharks and see where they occur on our southern East African oceans. Business efficiency, remember the BIS system or business information systems have been generated from your geographic information systems. Water, as Tara has alluded to earlier, development, crime, and those of you who are living around areas of crime, note, GIS enables the South African Police Services to locate areas or hotspots where crime is recurring, especially in your urban centers where hotspots, especially on your highways as well as off-ramps, are measured in terms of data and the number of crimes committed in that area, all fitted into a database, information given, and helps the SAPS to locate more policemen in particular hotspot areas. Did you know that GIS has enabled this in the South African Police Services? the health system. And this is very important. Whilst we look at the provision of health services in our country, you should note that the amount of population determines the provision of health services. So, simply put, the type of service in a hospital and the amount of specialization is determined by the population. And how do we measure it? We collect the data of people visiting the hospital frequently, the types of diseases that they may come in for. And now we are able to track throughout South Africa prevalent diseases that may be occurring and provide the adequate services to these hospitals so that our population grows healthy. Most importantly, and affecting you, education. Now, remember, the location of a school is determined again by the population. Where do we locate a school? It's no point locating a school where there's no population. Through GIS, we are able to aerially photograph a specific area, determine where the growth spots are, especially in a province like Gauteng, especially Johannesburg, KwaZulu-Natal, as well as the Western Cape, which over the years have shown much higher growth than the rest of the country. And therefore, there's a need for the provision of school. But where are these people going to? Through GIS, we are able to assist in better planning of our education system. Further to that would be logistics, energy, defense, environment, as well as government. Globalization. Especially, did you know that through Gauteng, in a square metered area, there are more KFC spots than anywhere else in Africa. Those of you who love KFC note that through the GIS system, the location of KFC outlets has determined where the population would be and where KFCs are more frequented. So, this was enabled by geographers just like yourselves. So, we will further look at agricultural as well as public safety. So guys, these aspects are the applications of various different professions in and around us. Some things that you take for granted are actually using geography on a daily basis to better plan their services to people around us. So what you need to understand is the more efforts you put into the subject will better enable you to look at careers in GIS where you will be able to inform the decision making of our country. And with that, I'm going to go back to Tara. What do you think, Tara?
This is so cool. I think this is great, guys, and I think I'm going to be collecting some data, hopefully. I would like to get as many questions from you so we can help you out. I think that he's doing an incredible job, but you never know, something might have slipped, and if you want to know, please ask. It's a bit quiet, so we want to get that going. Shall we take it to a break? I think that would be good.
So, yes, guys,
Okay.
and when you return, we will go to our actual types of questions in exam papers. Thanks, Tara.
Great, that's very important. So be back, and we'll see you after the break. Thanks, guys. Hello, Mindsetters. Welcome back. We've got lots of questions to get through, so we're going to get right to it. Thank you very much. Come on.
Thanks, Tara. Guys, let's look at past year question papers. And what I've done is extracted at least one question from each of the past 5 years question papers. Let's look specifically from 2008 to 2013 and the types of questions that you were receiving for GIS. Let's look at the first question. The first question has been adapted from the exemplar paper from DBE paper 2, question 4.1. Geographical Information Systems, or GIS, can store, manage, analyze, and display data. To manage the data in GIS, you must look at different parts that make up the system. Name any 2 parts of a GIS that make up the system. Now, as we've discussed in the beginning of the session, There are 5 components to our GIS, and you are required to name only 2. So my answer would be 1, hardware. 2, software. 3, people. Oh, we only require 2. But remember, data also forms, and as we've indicated, the most important component of a GIS. And these are some of the components that you could use, which would afford you the full marks. And this has seemed to be a recurring question in your GIS section of Geography Paper 2. So remember, when it comes to components, you are asked to identify these components. And as we've identified, you should be able to score the full marks. Let's look at the next question. The next question has been adapted from the November 2009 DBE Paper 2, question 4.2. And we've adapted it for the topographical map of Brits. The question, the diagram below illustrates the concept of data layering. And as we've discussed, data layering is the information in a computer that is processed according to the different sets of data that has been inputted into a computer. Let's look at the type of question you will receive. Explain the meaning of the term data layering. And I will answer the following. The term data layering refers to data that is placed on top of each other to create information. So remember, when it comes to data layering, data could be, for example, let's have a look at the diagram. Data on river catchments, roads and rail links, rainfall, and when we put each data together through a GIS, we get information on a computer. So, data layering enables information. Let's go through that answer again. The term data layering refers to data that is placed on top of each other to create information, and let's add about an area. Let's go to the next question. Name any 2 layers of information that one can identify in block G3 of the topographical map. And for that, we're going to go to the topographical map. And I'm going to select for you the following. It's actually B3. And if you look at this particular area of your topographical map, any layer is individually set as data. So the data in block B3 refers to, in this example, rivers, other roads, which forms another layer, cultivated areas, the golf course, which serves as a polygon object, can be a data layer as recreational activities. So, any 2 layers, in this example, we will now refer to other roads, which would be from the key of your topographical map, rivers, cultivated land, and so on. So all you have to do for this type of question is simply look at the particular block that is being referenced. Go to your key or legend and identify what is it, the object in that particular block, and simply write it down. This would afford you the full marks for this type of question. Let's go to the next one. Again, we're dealing with the topographical map of Brits. Data integration. And simply data integration is the putting together of data where you have different aspects like layering, and then when that information comes together, we refer to it as data integration. Is the process of combining different sets of information for a purpose of decision making. Discuss two sets of data that a farmer will use in block A5. Let's go back to the topographical map. And let's look at block A5. In this example, there's your block A5. And you will note that the information required for a farmer would be specific to aspects like a reservoir or a storage dam, the type of roads that lead to the farm, a non-perennial river, as well as disused roads or footpaths. Note there's even small settlements or buildings that exist which could provide the employment for this particular farmer. So in this aspect, we're looking at this particular block. You have a non-perennial river. Note the cultivated area. You have the availability of reservoirs as well as storage dams. And this will enable a farmer to grow crops and improve the agriculture in that particular area. So let's go back to the question. Discuss two sets of data that a farmer will use in block A5. One would be the types of water available. And as we've established in this particular block, we have a lot of example, reservoir, storage dams, as well as non-perennial rivers. The second set of information which can be used by a farmer would be access to transportation networks. And the line object that we're referring to would be the roads on that in that particular block. And this is the type of question that you will get in GIS, where you would be asked to apply that particular knowledge from your theory. In this case, we're largely dealing with economic geography and agriculture. How is agriculture influencing the GIS practice? We will see that a particular block reference would enable specific activities like farming to occur. What you have to do is identify the specific data in that block that enables farming to occur. Let's go to the next question. My favorite type of objective type of questions, a table. In this example, choose a term from column B that matches a description in column A. Note, we've got 4.1.1, 4.1.2, and 4.1.3. The raw facts that are collected about a feature. Exactly, guys. So we've got A, raster data, B, vector data, remote sensing, database, or data. Because the word raw is used, we immediately can conclude that the only correct term in this case would be E, referring to data. Let's go to 4.1.2, gathering of data about the Earth from a distance using satellites such as Landsat. And Landsat is a satellite which is able to determine the type of relief features on the Earth's surface. Immediately you should know that because we are obtaining information about an object from a distance, this is remote sensing. And exactly, guys, the option available to you is C. So 4.1.2 is C. Moving on to 4.1.3, data represented by pixels in the form of grid cells or pixels. And this particular answer, remember, can only be raster data. It cannot be vector data because we've established that vector data is only your points, lines, and polygons. When it comes to resolution type of images, we refer to raster data, and that answer is A. So your correct answers are E, C, and A. I hope you've got that right. Let's move on to the next question. In this example, we go back to the topographical map of Brits. GIS allows us to use thematic layers on maps, refer to the topographic map, and identify 2 layers of information that were used in compiling of topographical maps. And note that this particular question was taken from November 2012. We've answered this type of question already on data layering. But what I want to draw to your attention is the commonality, the frequency of these types of questions. You only being asked on the layering, as well as the defining, as well as the aspects that are basic principles of GIS. So when you are studying, make sure that your basics are in place. Make sure you know your definitions. In this example, again, data layering. So when we go to the map, you will note, and let's choose a different block. Any block in this example, you will note that in this particular block, which is C5, we're referring to a specific layer, for example, non-perennial rivers, which performs a specific layer in a GIS. In this example, we also have contour lines. In this example, we further can look at largely reservoirs, as well as aspects such as cultivated areas. So my answer in this particular example would be as follows. Number 1, contour lines. 2, non-perennial rivers. And again, 3, cultivated land. So these aspects, again, note the frequency of the type of question. Again, it's being asked data layers, thematic layers, and all these put together on a topographical map, which you must be able to use and identify different objects from your key as well as legend. Let's look specifically at the next question. And this is question 6. It says, improve your skills. Again, Harry Smith, and again, November 2013. Note that we've adapted these questions for the maps that we have available. And this particular question, which one of the topographical map or the photograph is raster data? Remember, your raster data consists of pixels which forms images. Your topographical map cannot be raster data. It can only be a photograph. Why? Because pixels determine the amount of resolution on a photograph. Your topographical map is largely made up of points, lines, and polygons. So the correct answer for this particular one is your aerial photograph. And if you have a closer look at your aerial photograph, you'll note that it's made up of images. Note there are line objects like contour lines. What we refer to in this example is this becomes now an orthophotograph. The moment you interpolate contour lines like such, it becomes an orthophotograph. If there are no lines on a photograph, it remains a vertical aerial photograph. Your topographical map is made up of line objects, point objects, as well as area objects. So guys, this is basic GIS that we've covered today. And Tara, now it's time for the challenge question. Let's look at the challenge question, guys, and see. What is georeference data? Tara, do you have any idea?
Oh my goodness, I actually have no idea, but I know that some of the mindset as well. So let's see what they have to say, and let's hear what you have to say.
Okay, good. Guys, when we refer to georeference data, it is simply adding of coordinates to an object on the earth. So any data that is inputted into a computer to generate information must have coordinates. And if you remember from our previous lesson, this is referred to as grid referencing. So any object that has data that is inputted into a computer must have its coordinates in terms of its relation to the equator as well as to the Greenwich meridian. So you know what we're talking about. The degrees, minutes, and seconds away from the equator and the degrees, minutes, and seconds away from the Greenwich meridian. As you've studied it, position or grid reference. What do you think about that, Tara?
I think that's a great answer, and I hope that that's what you guys got. You can also find the question online in case they missed it, and try it. Give it a try. It's definitely worth seeing, and we're here to help you out if you need any assistance. So are you done? Would you like to carry on?
Okay. So, guys, I hope you've enjoyed today's lesson. Let's look at specifics that we've covered today. What I want you to do is make sure that you revise your sections and be specific about data as well as information. Thanks, guys. See you again soon. Back to you, Tara.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We had a really eventful lesson today, and I think we learned a lot. So definitely stay tuned, and I hope that it helped. Thank you so much for joining us, guys, and we'll see you soon.